George, my father said. You chose George, the patron saint of England? He rang for the sisters. He rang for the priest. But there was nothing that could be done. The list had already been dispatched to the diocese, presumably written in indelible ink gored the blood of martyrs. I suppose it could have been worse. I might have been a fan of Hermits. Now Steve Naive was at the piano, going through the ambitious string chart that he had written for my song, And in Every Home, when St. Ringo walked in. George Martin looked up and said, "Hello, Ringo," as if this were entirely an everyday occurrence, which I suppose at one time it had been for him, and went back to the music at the piano. Jeff Emmerich had asked George Martin if he would look over Steve's orchestral score for any technical challenges, as Steve was intending to conduct the orchestra himself. George was generous with his time and advice, amused by the allusions to his Beatles orchestrations that Steve had written into his score. I invited Ringo and his wife Barbara into the control room, where he asked me if I would produce a few tracks for what became his Stop and Smell the Roses album. It was flattering to be asked, but I had a hard time imagining that I was the right man for the job, as I was still uneasy around musicians outside my own circle, so the plan to produce Ringo didn't go any further than one conversation. Eventually, the day arrived to record Steve Naive's Baroque chart for And in Every Home. Steve summoned up all of his Royal College of Music training, overcame his natural shyness, and commanded the conductor's podium admirably. It was as if we were hearing him speak for the first time. The other three of us applauded from behind the studio glass, as Naive provided some elaborately embroidered clothes for my shabby tail. Not long before I was born, my parents lived in a modest flat in Leeds, while my dad was playing in the trumpet section and singing the occasional song with Bob Miller and his Millermen at the Mecca Locarno Ballroom. By the time I pitched up there in the early 80s at an all-night cafe in the company of a couple of local girls, their old neighborhood seemed to have developed a more desolate and sinister atmosphere. I wrote And in Every Home after that bleak early morning visit, but there were so many details that I left out of those verses. They can be found in this short story.